Coming up on this episode of Prop IQ, we look at getting your house ready for sale, the most effective way to present your home to get the best price outcome. We'll meet the founder of Box Brownie, a leading prop tech company who can help style your house on the screen. And we also meet a stylist who can stage your home to have it looking its very best. And Nairi Ewings, an award-winning sales agent, joins me to discuss the selling process. This is Prop IQ. Hello and welcome to Prop IQ, a show produced by the REIQ to provide helpful insights into the real estate sector for both property professionals and consumers. I'm Antonia Mercorella, the CEO of the REIQ, and I'm thrilled you've joined me for this series that takes a deep dive into the latest trends, news and insights in the real estate industry. Our last episode was all about auctions, the benefits of using them and what to expect when going through the process. We heard from reigning REIQ Auctioneer of the Year, David Holmes, with his expert opinion on auctions. And of course, we met Colleen, who had recently sold at auction. Plus, Caitlin Ezzy provided some great insights into data around auctions. If you'd like to check out our auctions episode, it's now available to watch on demand at any time. Just go to reiq.com and click on Prop IQ. And don't forget, we love hearing from you. So if you're watching, please jump in the chat and make plenty of comments. And of course, be sure to ask us some questions. This episode is all about getting your house ready for sale. Selling your home can be a very stressful process, from appointing an agent to holding an open home to signing a contract of sale. There are so many unknowns to navigate. The reality of selling is that appearance and presentation really matter. Sellers should prepare themselves for the maintenance and presentation time it takes to successfully sell a property. When there is a for sale sign out the front of your home, it's imperative that the gardens and lawns are neat. If you are still living in the residence, then open homes can be an imposition. When it comes to the inside of the property, focus on safety and good working order. Consider you are entering the home for the first time and look for obvious and easy things to fix. For example, hinges, doorknobs and light switches. The recent spike in construction and labour costs may mean that any major renovation works may not get you a capital return. Also, think about who your target buyer is. Is it an investor, a young family, downsizers, or perhaps interstate migrants seeking a better lifestyle here in Queensland? Answering this question will help shape the way in which you present the house. And when it comes to presenting your house, there are a number of products and services to help you out.
She matched the trees to the colour scheme. Yes, the beautiful ocean's behind, but Leanne picked up on the tones of the tops of the trees that we're also in.
I'm Leanne Jacobs and I have Showcase Property Styling.
My name is Brad Filipponi. I'm the co-founder of boxbrownie.com. Boxbrownie.com is the world's leading real estate photo editing website.
Hi, my name is Wendy. We're in Coolum Beach in my family home, a home that we've had for over 40 years. It's currently empty. It's just been sold. It was on the market for probably 10 days. We decided to go with the stylist and they gave us their opinion about what they could do to improve our prospect.
Staging a home physically for us is really important because it's that first 3 seconds when you enter the home. And so whether the home has been staged physically or virtually, that online photos are hugely important.
So virtual staging, it's a great tool. Obviously physical staging is paramount, you know what I mean? But it's obviously very expensive. So we always say, hey, when you can't afford physical staging, our virtual staging is second to none.
So that's the difference between physical staging and virtual. Both are important, and there are some areas where there are no stages, and where they need that virtual staging.
We loved what they did and it made the sale very quick.
If people cannot afford physical staging, they've got to have the virtual staging to get buyers through the door.
We are that company that makes sky blue on an overcast day, or we can green your grass in your real estate photos.
With the researching about stylists, we anticipated being able to get between, around 5% an increase on the price, and we certainly did get well and above over that.
Studies have shown that most buyers will view a home for 5 to 10 minutes. In a staged home, they can stay for 45 minutes. The most satisfying part of our job is when clients phone us and say they've had a fantastic sale and the buyers are so excited to be moving in.
Box branding could do multiple things. We're just another tool in an agent's or a homeowner's tool belt. The concept of Box Brownie is, real estate agents, photographers, anyone who's trying to market a home, like whether it's for sale or for rent. There's nothing better than using a professional photographer and a great camera. However, if you are a homeowner, tight on a marketing budget, you might have an open listing with a few agents. Yeah, you can use your mobile phone these days and take stunning images.
The home will always dictate the style that we need to stage. So we highlight the house's best features, and staging is great. And so many agents wouldn't even sell a home without having it staged.
It worked for us. It worked perfectly for us in a way to attract more buyers on the ground. Yeah, it was very suitable for our situation.
Some great insights there. Thanks so much to Brad and Leanne for helping us put that story together. And now, to give us an agent's perspective on the selling process, I'm joined by Nairi Ewings. Nairi is one of Queensland's award-winning agents and is also the chair of the REIQ sales chapter and a leading sales agent with LJ Hooker in Cleveland. Nairi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here.
Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
So let's start with the first question, which is of course the role of a sales agent in the selling process. What is it about that role that makes it so critically important?
Oh, I think that's a multifaceted answer, to be honest, but I think the critical points around having an agent is, having somebody who can be a really neutral party, somebody who's not emotionally connected to a property that can represent you, somebody who can professionally represent the sale of the property and hopefully create some competition with multiple buyers for an owner.
Yeah, great. And of course, Nairi, we do know that sometimes sellers are tempted to adopt the do-it-yourself model to save some dollars.
Definitely.
Obviously, we both have a view on that, but let's talk about the advantages of using a professional sales agent.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess the advantages with using a sales agent is somebody who's completely independent, somebody who can, create that competition like I just sort of touched on a little earlier, understand, I guess, the legislation requirements as well. So not just things about pool safety or smoke alarms, but how to create that competition between the buyers, how to do it in an ethical and a really professional manner, to understand the difference in the terms and conditions, and to use those leverage points to, of course, increase the sale price as well, or the offer price for the owners to consider too.
Yeah, I think they're really important points. I think it can be incredibly challenging to sell your own property and of course to have to deal with all of the questions and phone calls and to do that in an objective manner. And of course we know that sales agents often have that database of interested parties that makes such a critical difference.
Because it's something that we deal with absolutely every single day, and we're in the field every single day. You're right, we're having all of these conversations with buyers and with sellers all of the times. you know, and I guess even sometimes real estate agents try to sell their own properties too. I guess one of the parts that people would struggle with trying to represent themselves is, of course, receiving some of the negative feedback, or buyers not being able to be open or honest about how they really feel about the home or its position in terms of the market.
Yeah, that's right. And I know that over the years we've sometimes heard those anecdotes about people who have started the process selling the property by themselves and have later on decided that they do need the assistance of a real estate agent. So it can actually end up costing you some precious time as well.
Definitely.
Now, let's talk about street appeal. We talk a lot about the importance of street appeal when we put our property on the market. People will do drive-bys. So tell us about how you can really elevate the street appeal of a property and where you should be investing your dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, street appeal is so important because I guess a lot of people like to judge a book by its cover. They like to see something that's really impressive from the front to begin with to sort of entice them inside. You know, so things that can be done to improve value or improve the appearance from the street and that curb appeal would be things like, you know, a little bit of landscaping, whether that's sort of bringing in some fresh mulch, making sure the lawns are looking good, neat and tidy, snipped as well, so whipper snip too. And then of course it could be a little bit of fresh painting or ensuring that the fencing looks good from the front as well. Even a pop colour if there's some plants and things like that too.
Yeah, and I think those are things that don't need to cost the world but can make such an extraordinary difference.
Definitely.
So now I want to talk a little bit about the types of costs associated with selling your home. Sometimes sellers don't understand the difference between an agent's commission versus the money that is invested into marketing and promotion. So how do you go about explaining that to a seller and explaining why both are different but important?
I guess the opportunity to meet somebody face to face, you know, is always a better chance to sort of explain the difference between the two fees and that they are two separate items. Of course, it does influence when other agents around you, of course, are including them all in as one particular fee as well. I guess, and sort of hiding it all inside the commission or charging a higher commission to cover those things too. So, you know, when you get the chance to explain to somebody face to face that one is the investment in trying to find the buyer and the other one is using the negotiation skills and the leverage of the agent to actually achieve the outcome and the result as well. But you know, sometimes you only get stuck sort of explaining things either via an email or even sometimes via a text, which can be also challenging, or people just want to know the upfront fees before they sort of dive in to understand the value difference in those positions behind each agent and the experience that's there as well.
Yeah, and we know that marketing dollars make such an important difference because ultimately, in an ideal world, we want to get as many eyeballs onto that property as possible so that we can really throw that net out far and wide and look for that right buyer.
Absolutely.
So Nairi, let's now talk a little bit about the sale of a tenanted property because this can be quite challenging and quite unique to selling, if we compare it, selling an investment property that has a tenant in it versus selling a family home, for example. There are some legislative constraints. So what advice can you give to people who are embarking on that process?
As a seller or as an agent or as both?
Well, probably both, yeah.
Sure. I think from the seller's perspective and from the agent's perspective as well, and I deal with a lot of tenanted properties down our way as well, so selling them that either have long-term tenants in place, that either have long leases in place, and or some that are sort of, you know, just a couple of months out from expiring as well. So I am really experienced in that field, but I think it's about respecting the person who's there and respecting their space as well. You know, just like you would with any seller, I would treat the tenant exactly the same way and explain the process to them, invite them on that journey with you so they can understand that it's a common goal of what we're trying to achieve. But, you know, if they say no to something, you know, trying to be understanding instead of forcing down the situation. I've got a tenant at the moment and they've agreed to the first 2 weeks of open homes and you work in together. You know, so if that's, you know, sort of buying them a bottle of wine or buying them a candle as a gift to say thank you, you know, right at the start of the process, because you know that the whole selling process is about to inconvenience the tenant as it does any owner. I've never met a buyer, a tenant or an owner that's so excited to see me every single Saturday for an open home. So, you know, again, it's just about respecting their personal space and about finding some common ground to work together and move forward from there.
Yeah, I think they're really important comments. I think communication is key, but as you say, recognising that it is an inconvenience for the tenant, and so therefore it's important to be respectful and work around their needs and their interests too. So that's good advice. And just finally, we're in a very fast moving market, but markets do change. So the seller looking to establish the right asking price for the property. We know that sellers can sometimes base that asking price on their needs rather than market conditions. So maybe some advice for anyone out there who is thinking about selling and trying to find the right way to determine the price. What are some good tips?
Well, of course, interviewing more than one agent, and I know I'm an agent saying that, but I think it's important to get a feel for what other people believe is achievable in the market, and also taking into consideration the marketing strategies that are working in that particular area, not ones that you've necessarily used before and you know sort of 6 hours away, or sort of half a country away, because sometimes your experience and how that's led and guided you there may not be the same sort of effective tools that are actually in your local space as well. Auctions certainly play a great part in the selling process, and it's important to understand sort of where their effectiveness sits as well, and same with private treaty too. Private treaty has a lot of successes as well, and understanding that whether that's price or no price, and getting that advice from the agents that are in the field doing the work for you at the time, but interviewing multiple agents to get a feel on where they feel that it can be achieved, but also on their marketing strategy and how to achieve that as well.
Yeah, great advice, and I think that's where that objective data plays such an important role, because inevitably human beings tend to base their asking price on what they need or what they think rather than objective data. So a good agent will of course be able to share that data with you.
And they should have themselves been having had the opportunity to actually walk through a lot of these properties, not just view them online like every other owner is doing to try to form an opinion, but actually having been inside to understood what was the story inside. Was there a situation from the selling or the buying perspective? Were there issues from the building and pest perspective? And did it paint a different picture inside than what it did online as well? So it's understanding the nitty-gritty to actually sort of give really, really quality and great advice to an owner.
Yeah, that's excellent advice, Nairi. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Well, there's definitely a lot to consider when getting your house ready for sale. But as we've seen, there are products and service providers that can make the process easier and help you get a premium price for your property. As always, when looking for an agent to help sell your house, make sure they are an REIQ accredited agency. This is the part of the show where we want to hear from you. If you have a question about getting your home ready for sale, make sure you comment so we can help you out. In the meantime, we've had some viewers submit some video questions. Let's take a look.
Hi PropIQ, my question is, how do I choose the right real estate agent to sell my home, and how can I be confident in determining the asking price?
This is such an important question when it comes to selling your home. Choosing the right agent will make such a key difference to the process. It's important that you interview at least 2 or 3 agents. Ask them about their expertise, their experience in your suburb, and past sales that they have been responsible for. Don't be afraid to ask about client satisfaction rates and client testimonials. It's always a good idea to talk to friends and neighbours and colleagues about their recommended agents. When you sit down with the real estate agent, think about how they make you feel. Are you comfortable asking questions? Because communication will be very important during the sales process. And of course, when you are looking for a real estate agent, make sure you always look for an REIQ accredited agency. When it comes to determining the sale price, it can be very tempting to base that on your needs rather than current market conditions. And again, this is where an experienced real estate agent can make all the difference. Make sure that you are basing that asking price on objective data and comparable past sales. You can ask real estate agents for assistance, and of course there are data providers out there like CoreLogic where you can obtain some information to give yourself the knowledge that you need to confidently determine the right price. Now let's go to our next question.
Hi, REIQ. I was wondering how long would it take to list and sell my property from start to finish?
Well, there is no set time limit for this because every property is unique. But what we know is that in Queensland, the average days on market length is 25 days. It may be much shorter depending on where in the state the property is located. And it's also important to understand that there's usually a time lapse between appointing the real estate agent and the first open home. And that may be because photographs need to be organised, perhaps also the signboard needs to be organised and various other marketing activities. So there is quite a lot of work that happens behind the scenes before the property hits the market. The other important thing to keep in mind is that even though you may secure a buyer who signs the contract of sale, then of course you'll need to wait for the settlement period, which may be between 30 to 90 days after that, or any other length of time that you've negotiated with the buyer. Let's go to our next question.
Hello PropIQ. What are the costs and the expenses I should consider when selling a home? And how much should I budget for these?
This is an important question because we do know that there are a number of costs and fees associated with selling property. First of all, you'll need to budget for advertising and promotional activities. These are very important because ultimately you want to make sure that you are promoting the property as far and wide as possible in order to secure the best possible price. On average, you should budget around 1% of the value of the property. So for example, if a property is worth $600,000, you should be budgeting at least around $6,000 on marketing and promotional activities. Your real estate agent can talk to you about the best marketing and promotional initiatives for your property. And of course, you'll also need to budget for the agent's commission. This is the sum of money you will need to pay to the agent once they successfully sell your property. This is not a regulated fee in Queensland, and therefore you can negotiate this with your real estate agent. At the outset, when you are choosing your agent, you can ask them to outline the various fees and expenses, and that will help you to make the decision you need to make and to budget appropriately. Let's move on to our final question.
Hello, PropIQ. I'm worried about inviting strangers into our home for an open home. How can we protect our family's property against risk of theft? How can we do that?
Well, this is a common question and it's understandable given that when we hold an open home, we are inviting strangers into the property. One of the most important things you can do is put away any valuable items and possessions. Things like jewellery, house keys and car keys should all be stored very securely. And of course, when it comes to protecting your family's privacy, you may want to think about perhaps taking away family photos and other items that reveal personal information about you and the family members. You can also speak to your real estate agent about your concerns, and they may decide to ask anyone coming into the property to give their personal information so that in the event of a theft, you do have a list of people who have come into the home. And of course, you may wish to speak with your insurance provider to let them know that you are holding an open home to ensure that you will be covered in the event of theft or damage to the property. There were some great questions in there, and thank you for taking the time to submit them. And don't forget, if you've got any other questions or any feedback for us, make sure you comment so we can respond to you. And if you'd like to be part of our Q&A segment or appear on the show in the future, make sure you follow us on social media. And a final reminder, please always remember to seek your own independent legal advice whenever purchasing or selling a property. Every property transaction is unique, so the answers and information I've provided today are general information only. And you should always seek your own independent legal advice that is tailored to your specific needs and circumstances. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Prop IQ. I hope you found it informative, and don't forget to share this video with your family, friends or colleagues, because you never know, they might just need a hand to demystify the process of buying, selling or renting. See you next time.